Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Good evening, everyone. We want to thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. I'm going to ask the clerk to announce the meeting and call the roll.
Roll call: Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Here. Markley. Here. Walters. Here. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Walker. Here. Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan. Mugia.
Here.
Holland.
Here. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend George Kemper of Ebenezer Ministries. I ask you to please stand for the invocation and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we bow our heads? Dear Heavenly Father, most gracious Father, we just thank you for this day and for your many blessings. We ask you to bless this body of leaders in our community and bless all those who are under the sound of my voice. Lord, give them vision. Lord, give them understanding and wisdom is our prayer. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend, for being here tonight. We appreciate it. I'll ask at this time the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Under Section 10, non-planning consent agenda, we have a correction. It's item number 5, a resolution amending the 2017 commission meeting dates. Under Section 12, administrator's agenda, we have an additional information. Under item number 6, we have a resolution for the MOU for FOP 4.
Thank you very much. All right, tonight we have two distinct parts of our meeting. The planning and zoning will be handled first and then followed by our regular commission meeting. We have some statements that need to be read by state law regarding planning and zoning meetings. I'll now ask the clerk to read that statement, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland, Commissioner Melissa Bynum at Large District 1, Commissioner Hal Walker at Large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1. Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, is unable to be here. Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3. Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4. Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5. Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6. Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7. And Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with the statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we'd appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once petitioners make their presentations, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on items on the Planning and Zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Does anyone have any contact? Let the record show no one indicating any contact with any one of the proposed items on the consent agenda.
I will now read the consent agenda items. Change of zone application item 13095, Joe Herring with Herring Survey, Inc. Change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District to subdivide the property at 11011 Leavenworth Road. Recommended for approval. Item 2, 3099, Harold Phelps with Phelps Engineering. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District for an agricultural use for 7251 Locust Avenue. Recommended for approval. Item 3, 3100, David and Patricia Johnson with BSB Investments. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to CP0, Planned Non-Residential Business District for a new doctor's office with parking and expansion for existing doctor's office at 1205 North 90th Street. Recommended for approval. Special use permit applications, item number 1, SP 2015-63, Richard and Mary Leslie. Renewal of a special use permit for a kennel for 4 dogs at 334 North Thorpe. Recommended for approval for 5 years. Item 2, SP 2015-64, Ronald E. Isom. Special use permit for a storage container at 3002 Delavan Avenue. Recommended for approval for 18 months. Item 3, SP 2015-65, Reed Roberts. Renewal of a special use permit for live entertainment in conjunction with Event Center at 3150 North 91st Street. Recommended for approval for 5 years. Item 4, SP 2015-66, Jesus M. Rodriguez. Special use permit for the temporary use of land of Keep Lawn Care Equipment for their business at 1701 South 40th Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 5, SP 2015-67, Diego Toto with XM Automotive. Special use permit for a mechanic heavy repair shop at 4439 Shawnee Drive, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 6, SP 2015-68, Jeff Pierce, LG Everest, Inc., renewal of special use permit for a dirt field at 8600 Gibbs Road, recommended for approval for 5 years. Vacation application, item 1, A 2015-11, Will Anderson with BHC Roads, vacation of an alley at 1122 Southwest Boulevard, recommended for approval. Plan review application, item 1, PR 2015-20, Caleb Bundy, CAM Design and Construction, Inc., preliminary plan review for a C-store at 7552 State Avenue, recommended for approval. Master plan application, item 1, MP 2015-4, David and Patricia Johnson with PSB Investment, master plan amendment for low-density residential to neighborhood commercial at 1205 North 90th Street, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinance amendments, item 1, is an ordinance amendments for certain amendments at section 2734, section 27593A, section 276084, section 276128, section 276139, section 27614, section 27615, and section 2766. Planning and Development of Kansas City, Kansas ordinances generally concerning the definition of farmers markets and special use permit requirements for zoning districts at AG, C1, CD, C2, C3, M1, M2, M3, and TND, recommended for approval. Ordinance amendments, a new provision to section 27612, Planning and Development of Kansas City, Kansas Code of Ordinances, to amend where food trucks and mobile food vendors may operate without a special use permit, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinances, item number 1, is an ordinance amending the permitting process for farmers markets, amending section 2730, 27593, 27608, and 27611 through 27616 to Chapter 27, Article 8 of 2008 Code of Ordinances and Resolutions of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. And item 2, an ordinance amending the permitting process for food trucks and mobile homes vending, amending section 2737, 27612, and 614, Chapter 27, Article 8 of 2008, Code of Ordinances and Resolutions of the Unified Government, Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Would any commissioner or anyone in attendance tonight like to remove any item currently on the consent agenda? Any item not removed will be voted on with one vote, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Would anyone like to remove an item at this time?
Move for approval.
Second.
Let the record show no one is moving forward to remove an item. It is properly moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call: Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to the first item on the Planning and Zoning non-consent. It's a special use application for the Healthcare Resort of Kansas City. I'd invite the applicant to come forward at this time and make application.
I hope I can live in a place like
Good evening. I am Lisa Coleman with the Healthcare Resort of Kansas City, and our address is 8900 Parallel Parkway in Kansas City, Kansas, and we are a 70-bed skilled nursing facility and 35-bed assisted living facility located at 8900 Parallel Parkway. And we offer short-term skilled rehab on our bottom floor and assisted living on our top floor. We have several amenities throughout our resort, and one of those being we have a pub on our skilled nursing unit and our assisted living in our apartments up there. Our plan is to serve our guests at a 2-drink maximum, free of charge during their stay with us. We call our patients or our residents on our assisted living our guests. And then if families were to come in and choose to have a beer with dad while he's watching football, they're allowed to do that. Again, it's a 2-drink maximum for our guests and for their visitors if they're coming in to visit. I know that some of the concerns were maybe somebody that came in intoxicated already, and we were to offer additional alcohol. And I think that we do have a right to post a sign that says we have a right to refuse service at any time for those types of folks, as liquor stores and some of your bars also have that right to refuse. So I think those, and then another concern that was brought up was the close proximity to the church. And I would hope that we would never have anybody intoxicated enough to cause any disturbances at the church property. So that is our intent and the reason for the special use permit. And I don't know if I mentioned, it'll be point of sales for the visitors, but it'll be free of charge for our guests that are with us. And of course, with the physician's order. So somebody that might be on medications alcohol might affect their well-being, then the physician would not be prompted to issue a physician order for that, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So I need to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in attendance tonight who would like to step forward to speak in favor of this item. Let the record show no one is stepping forward to speak in favor. Is there anyone in attendance tonight who would like to step forward and speak in opposition to this proposal? Let the record show no one
Move
is
for
stepping
approval.
forward to speak in opposition. The public hearing is now
Second.
closed. It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion by the commission? Roll call.
Roll call: Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right, it has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And if you've not been out to see the healthcare resort, it is beautiful. So thank you.
Blessed to have something nice in Wyandotte County, and as a Wyandotte County citizen, I'm very fortunate to be able to bring that to the community, so thank you.
All right. All right, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Planning and Zoning, Rob Richardson, to give us some updates on some activities he's doing in addition to the stack of approvals we did at our consent agenda, which was easy for us, but a lot of work for you in your office, to look at some of the planning, long-range planning that you're doing.
Thank you, Mayor. We're currently working on 3 major planning projects: the Rosedale Master Plan, the K-32 Transit and Land Use Redevelopment Plan and Quiet Zone Study, and then the rewrite of the sign code. Each of the 2 master plan amendment processes have websites that go along with them. Those websites are up on the screen, and we'll put those up later, and they will also be up on UGTV. For sign code information, folks should just email me. We committed to updating the Board of Commissioners monthly during this planning and zoning meeting on these 3 projects. For tonight, I'm going to do more of an in-depth update on the Rosedale Master Plan and a less significant minor update on the K-32 Quiet Zone and the sign code rewrite. So each of these processes has an advisory committee. The members of the advisory committee for the Rosedale Master Plan were appointed by the groups that have contributed funding to the master plan process. And those groups, in no particular order, are Kansas City Area Transportation Authority, BPU, the University of Kansas Medical Center, the University of Kansas Hospital, the Endowment Association, Rosedale Development, Argentine Neighborhood Development Association, and the Unified Government. We've done some public outreach on this project already, and this is kind of a word cloud of the significant things that came up repeatedly in that process. So you can see housing, community, people, sidewalks, neighborhoods, traffic, streets are all big issues there. The public is really excited about this process, and they have a very optimistic view of their neighborhood, but they also recognize what some of their challenges will be, and I think this does a good job of showing where their thoughts are as we go forward in this process. One of the interesting things that affects the Rosedale neighborhood is the housing ownership rate, and on this map, you can see I-35 towards the north where it kind of divides between the bright colors and the faded colors. The bright colors are within our study area, which goes from I-35 to 47th Street and from State Line basically to Mission Road. But the dark red colors show where you have a very low percentage of home ownership or property ownership in this particular corridor. And having driven all of these streets in preparation for this process, I tell you that it correlates fairly directly to housing condition and other issues within the neighborhoods that we've heard in the planning process. There's also a traffic study involved in this, and this is one of the most interesting things that the consultant team has provided to us so far. This shows you the direction of the 8,000 people, the direction that the people come into Rosedale every day. 8,000 people commute to work in Rosedale every day. 52% of those people live more than 10 miles away. But you can see that about half of them, or 4,000 people a day, come up I-35. And when they come into Rosedale, most of them are turning south on Rainbow and then making left-hand turns into the medical center campus. Those left turns are primarily responsible for the traffic issues that we have on Rainbow Boulevard. And so trying to find a way to address those left turns and the rest of the traffic issues in the Rosedale area is the primary focus of the traffic study. As you'll notice, the university is currently building a new hospital building at 39th and State Line, and that is just step one in a process that will add nearly 1 million square feet of additional development to the area just north of 39th Street between State Line and Rainbow. So I think that we're probably going to have more traffic than this in the future, and the traffic engineers are working on that. A couple of the items we're looking at to help relieve those left turns. You'll see here we have Cherokee, a potential extension up along the utility lines that would get you up to 39th Street, which is right here. This is Rainbow and Southwest Boulevard. The Southwest Boulevard and I-35 interchange is down here. This is Rainbow Extension. So if you have 4,000 cars a day coming from this direction and going up Rainbow, if you could take some of them up Rainbow Extension and then create a new intersection that had no left turns but just allowed people to go straight across Rainbow and circulate over to Eaton Street and be in the heart of the campus where the new garage and up to the Cambridge garage will be. If you could eliminate left turns using that, that would free up Rainbow up here, and some of the backups that you see when you're trying to turn left onto 36th or 39th Street might be alleviated by this maneuver. So they're looking at these two options to look at the cost benefit of those, as well as some other options for traffic in the area. But this is just some of the early results, things that we've seen from the consultant team on the road network, and what we might do about Rainbow to make Rainbow function better. I don't think that adding 4 more lanes to Rainbow all the way north to south is going to really solve our problem. It'll be a different kind of problem at that point. We don't really have room for that. So we're looking for some creative alternatives that would be cost effective in alleviating some of those traffic issues. They're also studying various corridors in the area, and this is just a representative of 5 or 6 or 7 of these that they're looking at. So this is Rainbow from 39th to 43rd, and they want to encourage mixed-use development in this area, similar to 39th and Rainbow, create a walkable Rainbow Boulevard, integrating public areas. And so that's kind of what they're focusing on based on what we've heard in the public testimony in this area. They're also looking at places like 43rd Street, 47th Street, State Line, and some other places, 39th Street from Rainbow to the west, to see what really we can do and as far as the street network and the development along that street network to help make the community work a little bit better within itself. They're also looking at specific neighborhoods, and this is a draft of a map that we saw this morning in our advisory board committee meeting. And it's not by any means the last map on neighborhoods we'll see, because they've looked at these areas and they were talking about different things that they might do, because this part of Hilltop neighborhood is a little bit different than the stuff down closer to 43rd Street. And then we might want to look at the Mission Cliffs area as a neighborhood of its own as well. And obviously, the circles here don't encompass like all of Spring Valley or all of Hanover Heights. are all of Frank Rushton. But we're going to look at the different neighborhoods, and you can see that there on the slide the vision that we want neighborhoods that are attractive to homeowners because beautiful homes, safe sidewalks, and other aspects of having a quality neighborhood. We have some upcoming meetings. I mentioned we had an advisory committee meeting today. On January 13th and 14th, we'll hold our second set of public meetings. The first on the 13th will be at noon at Our Savior Lutheran Church. It'll be in their fellowship hall in the basement. And on the 14th at 6:30 p.m. we'll be at Rosedale Middle School. And that'll be the same meeting twice, but we try and do different days and different times to allow people that might have work conflicts or other personal conflicts to attend the meetings. We had about 60 different residents at the first two meetings, and we're well over 100 different people that have been involved in the process when you look at the My Sidewalk page that they have and the other outreach that they've done. They've been to nearly all of the neighborhood group meetings for the smaller neighborhood groups in the area. They've done a walking tour with community members. They plan to do a bike tour, but that morning it was about 34 degrees, and so there weren't many people wanting to ride their bikes that morning. We might do that again in the spring to talk about bicycles and how bicycles circulate in that area. And then on February 6th, we'll be doing a Planning Commission update. And for those meetings, we go from 9 to 11, and each consultant has an hour to talk to the Planning Commission to update them on that process. We're not doing that with them every month. And they wanted to do that offline, not during their regular monthly evening meetings, but they wanted to be able to spend more time on it, so they thought that doing that on a Saturday morning would work better, so that's what we're doing with them on all three projects. Any questions on the Rosedale process before I move on to K32?
Commissioner Murguia.
Thanks. Just a quick clarification, Rob. I think it was just a slip of the tongue, but for the public's knowledge, the $250 million hospital is not being built by the university.
Oh, correct. So
Important clarification.
there are three entities that are important on what we think of as the KU campus. There is the University of Kansas Hospital Authority, and they are building the hospital. There's the University of Kansas Medical Center, which is the medical school, and there's the KU Endowment Association, which works with a lot of property in the area. So those three groups are distinct. Is that?
Right, and there are two major developments going on. There's a $250 million hospital tower, and there is a $75 million medical education building, which is being built by the university. And just for those people that don't get involved in development projects, I believe Administrator Bach told me that when we built NASCAR, that was a $200 million project. So that should put in perspective the level of economic development investment that's going on in Rosedale.
Right. There is, if you drive 39th Street from State Line to Rainbow, there are two very significant projects underway, and they're getting to be very obvious. And they've done individual traffic plans for each of those. So they can work with the machinery, equipment, and supplies that they're bringing in there to do as little disruption in the regular flow of traffic in the neighborhood as they can.
I would say, too, this effort is remarkable. The hospital's had a master plan for a long time. The city's had a master plan for a long time. This is the first time that we're doing it together. The hospital and the university are supporting it with funding, are at the table in the discussions. It's very important that we have there's been a tension historically between KU and the city. Really for no reason other than we have a ton of parking and a ton of people, and it's a conflict with the residents and it's a conflict with the businesses. But KU as a whole, all of it together, is our largest employer in Wyandotte County. There are over 10,000 employees there every single day. And unfortunately, the majority of that benefit for those employees and that economic engine that is KU is benefiting Johnson and Jackson County. And not that we don't love Johnson and Jackson County, yes, but we'd like to see a lot of that benefit here in Wyandotte County. And so this master plan offers us an opportunity to see how we can capture the office space that KU needs, how we can capture better housing, opportunities for the students, but not just for the students, but for other people who work there, who want to live, work, and play in the same area, how we can enhance green space, how we can make Rosedale University Town. It's a great asset, and do that while not further encroaching on some of our historic neighborhoods. The growth out there and the lack of a good plan has put a lot of pressure on some of the local neighborhoods there. And I think this plan offers the best opportunity for us to address the traffic and do it in a planful way that's mutually beneficial to the homeowners as well as the folks who work there. So I commend you on working on this. It's been an effort that has been needed to be done for a long time. And so we have a lot of great partners who are working on this.
The next project is the K32 Tri-City Multimodal Redevelopment Plan and Quiet Zone Study. This project starts at 57th and I-70 and extends all the way along K32 out to the western city limits of Bonner Springs. And we're looking at about a quarter mile either side of that as part of the study, but obviously there are areas where that quarter mile will grow a little bit because of the nature of the land uses there. This project too has a advisory committee. The unified government has 4 appointments to this. Those were done by district commissioners. They're listed there. And then all 3 communities asked for Greg Kendall to participate as economic development person that works with all of us on projects that move forward. So we've done a little bit of public work with this one as well. We've had our first round of meetings, and from that, the consultant asked for one word or phrase to be used in 2025. What would the advisory committee think we should talk about for K32? Walkability, economic sustainability, attractive, cohesive but unique, and gateways were the prominent words that we heard in those meetings. They also talked about challenges. From the development side, the 2 or 3 biggest challenges are the steep slopes on the north, the floodplain, the north of K32, the floodplain south of K32, and the railroad. We need transportation options. We have some infrastructure that's missing for new development in different places. And we need to talk about the type, size, and appearance of the future development in this corridor. There are large sections of industrial ground in that area that's going to remain industrial, but there are also areas that are adjacent to residences as you move to the north. Bonner Springs and Edwardsville have a little bit different character than K32 in the corridor, and so we have to address all those challenges within the 3 cities independently. We looked at opportunities, and some of these correlate to our challenges. We have vacant land. We have existing areas that could be redeveloped. We have the opportunity to develop unique gateways in this area. There are parks and recreational amenities and opportunities, and also opportunities with the way we get around. K32 on Saturday morning is a great bicycle ride because there's not much traffic on it. It's a nice, long, flat road, and it's a great ride, but that's about Saturday, Sunday mornings, probably the only time that you want to do that because of the traffic flow most of the rest of the time. So there are opportunities along there that we're going to look at as we move forward with the 3 communities and KDOT. This graphic was put together by the consultant, and I would tell you that right now we're kind of in the explore mode. We're looking, they're getting ready to look at redevelopment scenarios. The draft of the quiet zone study is completed, and they're going to work on finalizing that, working with the advisory committee, another set of public meetings, and talking with you all and the various planning commissions. We should be done with this in August of 2016 is when it's planned. All 3 communities are set to adopt the plan in August of 2016 if everything goes well. As far as the next set of meetings coming up goes, on January 19th, Mr. Heatherman and the consultant will be before the Public Works Standing Committee to talk about the quiet zone study. We'll have another stakeholder advisory meeting on the 21st. And then the 26th and 27th of January, we'll have public meetings in Kansas City, Kansas, and then in Edwardsville. On January 28th, Mr. Heatherman again will be before the Board of Commissioners with the quiet zone study. And then on February 6th, this will be a part of the additional Planning Commission updates that we do. Are there any questions on the K32 study? All right, I'll move on to the sign code update. There's an advisory committee for this as well, and you all have appointed these members. If you have not appointed someone to represent the residential folks in your area or the business folks in your area, there is still some time to do that. Our next advisory committee meeting is coming up next week, I believe, so if you haven't done that and want to, please contact me quickly. We're not quite as far along on this study as we have been on the other one, so this is some background. The typical sign issues that communities face deal with traffic, aesthetics, visibility, the effect signs have on economic development for the community and for individual businesses, and then how they might impact property values. You all know we got into this because of a U.S. Supreme Court case, Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona. This is the sign that resulted in a Supreme Court case that changed how every community in the country does sign codes.
It was the Presbyterians?
It was the city and how they treated the Presbyterians,
Okay.
and more precisely. So this, in their code, this was called a temporary directional sign relating to a qualifying event. And when you had a qualifying event, you had to have the signs up a couple of hours before and down a couple of hours after. However, if you were putting up a Save the Whale sign or whatever message you wanted to put up, you could have more of them, they could stay up longer, and they could be bigger than the special qualifying event sign. And to tell the difference, you had to read the signs. And so this is where the Supreme Court made their distinction, I believe, in that saying that if you're looking at aesthetics and traffic safety, then that's okay, but visual impacts from one to the other when they're basically the same don't really qualify. There's not really any difference in traffic impacts. And when you have to read the sign, you're really regulating the content of the sign and not the sign itself. So after the case, there was a majority and a concurring opinion, and they talk about what we can regulate, and there's still some unanswered questions. And Mark White, the attorney that's helping us with this, provided this slide, so I'm really just retelling his story here. But the majority of the court said that we can regulate size, materials, lighting, moving parts, portability, and signs on public property. So if the word's in green, it means that it's both the majority and the concurring opinions included that. The concurring opinion also said that we could regulate location, freestanding versus attached signs, lighting, again, fixed versus electronic message signs, public property, commercial versus residential, on and off premises, the total number of signs allowed per some other criteria like frontage, time restrictions on advertising an event, and governmental signs. But there's still some unanswered questions that the case left related to commercial speech and on versus off-premise signs. So we have a lot of direction from them in this case. So when we're looking at a sign now and how we're developing our regulations, we have to be content neutral. So we can't base our regulations on what a sign says. If the message determines if it stays up or down, or if it has regulations to what it says, then it's content based. If we're talking about how long a sign can be out, where it can be placed, or how it can be placed, then then the regulation is content neutral. So where this rubber really hits the road is real estate signs, political signs, grand opening signs. You know, we have to come up with a way to regulate those where it's content neutral and not based on what it says. And so that's where the challenge will be in updating our regulations. In addition to looking at the regulations, we want to make them more easily understood, easily used. We'll do a better job with definitions and graphics in the code. And we will also talk about the particular technical parts of the code as far as how big are the signs, how many signs, and things like that. So our process, we're in the part 2 here. You'll see in red at the top of this graphic, background research and recommendations. Next week, we'll be having an advisory committee meeting where the consultant will present their early recommendations on this process. And discuss that with the advisory committee, then go back and work on those recommendations again. And then in January, we will have another advisory committee meeting and a series of public meetings to talk about the final draft and amendments to the final draft of the recommendations. And then he'll begin the drafting process. This process should be concluded in the May Planning Commission, but I think the May Planning Commission planning meeting with you all might fall to the first week of June. So that's what we're looking at for this as we move forward. Coming up, as I said, next week we have our second advisory committee meeting, December 17th. Then on January 20th and 21st, we'll have another advisory committee meeting, and then it's actually, January 20th will actually be meeting number 3 with the advisory committee, and then 2 public meetings that we'll have, one at 6 p.m. one day and one at 4 p.m. the next day. We don't have those locations locked down yet. So while I ask if there's any questions related to the sign code, I'll go ahead and put up the links again for the different planning processes if someone wants to learn more about those processes. Any questions related to the sign code update?
No, I just want to thank you for your work. You're carrying a lot of freight down the highway here. Each of these plans is big for our community, and they're going to take a lot of work, so I appreciate you and your staff spearheading this.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes our planning and zoning portion of this meeting and brings us to our non-planning and zoning portion, which includes a consent agenda. And I would ask if anyone in attendance tonight or a commissioner would like to remove any item from the non-planning consent agenda. Commissioner Walker?
I'm moving for approval.
Second.
Okay. Let the record show no one is moving forward to remove an item. It has been properly moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call: Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right, that now brings us to our administrator's agenda, which the first item is Board of Public Utilities revenue bonds. Before I turn it over to Mr. Bach, I would like to recognize our fellow elected officials who are in attendance from the Board of Public Utilities: Mary Gonzalez, Jeff Bryant, and Norm Scott. We appreciate your being here tonight. Mr. Bach?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we have the issuance of utility system improvement bonds. As the Commission will recall, this is a project that we've been involved with the Board of Public Utilities for a couple of years. When they came in some time ago, went through the evaluation of the type of system they wanted to put in place. Our commission went through, vetted this process with them, and ultimately made the recommendation to move forward with the new plant that they are building today. So they've done this in 2 bond issues. This is the second of 2 different bond issues, and I will turn this over to Lou Levin to specifically go through what we'll be approving tonight. Lou?
Yeah, thank you, Doug, Mayor, Commissioners. As Doug said, we're ready to move forward with the second phase of the financing. I do want to say with me this evening's Don Gray, General Manager of the Board of Public Utilities, Lori Austin, Chief Financial Officer, Dave McGilvery, our financial advisor with Springstead's here to answer any questions, as well as our legal representatives from Gilmore and Bell, Gina Rekoff and Kevin Wempe. Angela Lawson, our attorney with the Board of Public Utilities, is also here. On this, so what you have before you is really the second phase of the BPU financing. 2 years ago, you approved or authorized up to $250 million for the financing, primarily related to air quality control systems with existing utility plants. The action before you, what we have is what's referred to as a parameters resolution. We're ready to move forward with the financing in January, subject to the parameters in the ordinance. I'll just read those, and then when I'm done, Mr. Gray is going to go through a brief presentation just to provide a little additional detail on the project. Anyways, the second phase of the financing, the principal is not to exceed $133 million. The project fund cost not to exceed $125 million with capitalized interest through March of 2017. The true interest cost shall not exceed 4.6%, so we believe the interest cost will be at 4.6% or less. Final maturity shall not occur after 2045, so we're looking at a 30-year financing. The underwriter's discount is 0.35%, so that means the fees paid to underwriters is less than 1%, and we should have the ability to do our first call no later than 9/1/27, so that means when the bonds would be eligible for refinancing. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gray for presentation. Hit this on and move forward.
Thank you, Lou. Mayor and Commissioners, Unified Government staff, I thank you for allowing me to be here this evening, and also especially thank our board for being here as well, and appreciate their support. What I'd like to do is just kind of give a little background of the project and then talk a little bit about the financing to conclude. As Lou said, in December of 2013, the Unified Government Commissioners approved our recommendation to invest $250 million in environmental upgrades for our 235 megawatt Nearman power station. And during that evening, we made a formal presentation outlining and explaining in detail our options and reasons for making the upgrades at Nearman. But also as part of our strategy to reduce the cost to our customers, we essentially split the $250 million bond issue, and thus we sold $110 million in the first issue in 2014. The reason for spending this money was EPA has come out with a federal mandate ordering all utilities to comply with a new air quality control standard. It's called MATS, Mercury and Air Toxic Standards. And what that is, the goal of the MATS rule was to reduce sulfur dioxide compounds, mercury, and particulates. And that was finalized in April of 2012. So that was kind of our marching orders to start putting more environmental controls on our plant. Now the work should be completed February of 2017. Now, the main drivers and the main reasons for making this big investment in our power station was the Nearman plant has more than 30 years of useful life. Coal is price stable versus natural gas. You can store coal on site, which it's practically impossible to do that with natural gas. You can store coal on site, or you can maintain, and also this having coal along with all of our other renewables and other natural gas systems, it keeps our generation fleet diversified. And it helps us maintain better control of our generating costs. And also, it just, as we know, this is a very favorable time to be in the bond market in these recent years. And it also supports energy reliability for our community. Now, I also pointed out during the presentation in December of 2013 that we're not alone. A lot of utilities around us are having to make sizable, and have made sizable investments in their plants as well. Westar, for example, as well as Kansas City Power and Light, which are two of our neighboring utilities, made substantial investments in their facilities too. The Nearman construction progress is going well. In our specifications, we made sure that any contractor that bid on our projects had to have a certified workforce. And I am personally proud to say that all of our contractors are union contractors. We began installing piles and foundations roughly May of this year. We began erecting steel recently. And I will also say proudly that the project is ahead of schedule and will finish under budget. And we should start commissioning equipment in 2016, and then hopefully our startup will be, I don't know why it wouldn't since it's on schedule, would be roughly between November and February, 16 and 17. I put a few photographs in here so you kind of see the level of work activity that's going on. The one photograph to the left, my left, is the laydown area where a lot of equipment, when it arrived, we had to make room to place everything, kind of like a erector set. And then to the right, you can see the tall crane and a lot of the steel starting to go up. Also, you can see on the left again more steel, part of our scrubber in our SCR. So there's a lot of work going on. Now, we are spreading the cost to reduce ratepayer impacts. You know, we received authorization to sell the $250 million, but as a strategy to reduce the cost, like I'd said earlier, we split the bond issue. And the two reasons for that, naturally, is to not only spread the cost, but to also, we would get more accurate information as to the actual cost of the project the closer we got towards, especially getting towards the middle of the project. We would have a good idea on what actual costs were because all of the bids, the major bids for construction would have come in by then and so forth. So instead of now the project costing a full $250 million as originally projected by our engineering staff, I'm happy to say now that the project has been reduced to the second issue, instead of being roughly $140 million, is set at $125 million to complete the project. And we hope to do that early in 2016. So this is a savings to our community of $15 million. On December 2nd, our board passed a resolution for phase 2 of the bond sale. And the 2016, just so you know, basically the cost impact so far to our customers, the environmental surcharge, and this goes into our environmental surcharge, it's a rider, it's a pass-through. In 2010, we had that established, the environmental surcharge rider, because when regulations come out, whether they're for the energy sector, whether they're for water, we have no control over what EPA directs or what the state directs over us. So we decided to put that up as a pass-through because some of the investments that we need to make in order to meet some of these changes in the regulations are pretty substantial, like the Nearman project. So we thought it would be good to set up the debt schedule as a pass-through. So, and I will say that's being well received by our rating agencies. In 2017, the environmental surcharge rider, after we sell the second issue, is estimated to increase $2.25 per month for a residential customer. I know we get asked a lot about how our rate's doing for our community, so I thought we would put up a bar chart to show for a residential customer with an average of 858 kilowatt hours, which is roughly average for our community. What would be the monthly change to the customer bill? Currently, going into 2016, our current costs are $101 approximately a month on the average. And with the second issue, rates will go up roughly $2.25. And again, that's an approximation because we haven't actually sold the bonds to see what type of interest rates we will receive. I will say that last time we were in the market, we had a lot of interest in our bonds, and we don't anticipate nothing less this time. I might also add in 2018, there'll be another slight bump similar to 16 and 17. So, and again, as a way to continue to spread the cost out as far as we can to lessen the impact on our community. Any question?
All right, thank you. Commissioner Walker.
Mr. Gray, was your board, I see that you said they passed, was your board unanimous?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. We want to thank our friends at the BPU for your hard work, the elected officials as well as the staff. You all face a tough regulatory environment, and we appreciate the work that you're doing on behalf of our community. So thank you for coming tonight. That brings us to item number 2, Public Building Commission bonds. Mr. Levin?
We sort of have a companion piece of financing associated with this, with the larger financing that we just authorized. The BPU office building was financed under an IRB structure in 2001. We have the opportunity to refinance it, and we're really looking at just a savings over a 5-year period. Since it was done under an IRB structure, one of the alternatives that bond council's identified for us, or that actually recommends to us, is that we do the refinancing under the Public Building Commission structure. And the graph, or the chart that appears on the wall there shows basically the structure of that financing. We would issue the debt through the Public Building Commission. The unified government would enter into a lease with the PBC, and there would be a sublease by the BPU. So the BPU would make payments through the UG to the PBC, and then the debt payments go to the bondholder. There's a significant savings associated with it over 5 years, almost 8% over. Approximately, we're projecting $641,000. So the what the resolution before you, it authorizes the Public Building Commission to proceed with that financing. We would do the actual financing in January with our annual bond and note sale.
All right, any questions? Commissioner Walters?
A couple of questions. I believe you told me that essentially this would be switching the debt from the BPU to the unified government. And so is the IRB process not available
Yeah,
for the...
Gina, might you? I'm going to ask Gina Rekoff of Gilmore and Bell to, maybe address those legal questions.
I stumped Lou.
Good evening, Gina Rekoff with Gilmore and Bell. I'll try and make my explanation as simple as possible. Currently, under the IRB structure, there is a developer that was involved in the financing transaction for the office building when it was completed in 2001. We'd be taking the developer out of the middle of that, and when we do that, then the IRB structure is not available to us. The structure that we would be using here, though, with the PBC would, in terms of the ultimate repayment stream that is expected to be used to repay the bonds, is the same here under the PBC structure as compared to the IRB structure. I think the one point that you raise that it's appropriate to point out is that Under any lease between the PBC and the unified government, those leases under Kansas law are not subject to annual appropriation. So they are payable if the commission decided not to appropriate funds, or in this particular case, the BPU did not make funds available to repay bondholders, then the UG at that point would be obligated to make those lease payments from any available source of funds in your general fund that were not already committed. So we are interjecting the UG into the repayment stream vis-a-vis bondholders. That's one of the things that helps bring down the interest rate and helps us achieve some of these savings. But frankly, it's one of the few legal structures that's available under Kansas law to be able to refinance this transaction to be able to achieve that interest cost savings.
Okay, thank you. Another question, I think, for Lou. I don't have any concern that BPU won't actually pay this, but our overall debt structure that we are concerned about, do you think that this will inhibit us in the near future in any of the projects that we anticipate financing?
Because of our overall debt?
Well, because of this $5 million or in particular, or $7 million. What impact do you think accepting the $7 million more in debt will have on our immediate future of trying to finance other projects?
Public Building Commission debt is not subject to our debt limitation under Kansas statute, so it really won't affect us from that sense. You know, we'll still show that debt as an obligation of the unified government, but if we had any credit calls with credit agencies, we would clearly indicate that the debt was an obligation of the Board of Public Utilities through that sublease structure. And so I think actually it might actually be viewed positively, because credit agencies also look at the overall debt of the community, and what we're doing with this transaction is creating a savings as it relates to the community.
Thank you. Move for approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I do want to thank our legal team and our finance team. You are very aggressive in refinancing. Almost with every bond issue, we do a refinancing that saves us significant money, and I appreciate your being aggressive in that. All right, it's properly moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to the Cricket Wireless Amphitheater financing.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This resolution is related to the financing of the Cricket Wireless improvements. Back in August, the Commission approved the improvements and requested the PBC to issue revenue bonds. We did take bids, and we have selected a bid from UMB Bank. It is a taxable series with a total amount of $780,000, and the true interest cost is 3.29%. This resolution authorizes the lease agreements between the unified government and the PBC, a similar structure as they just talked about with the BPU bonds. There is a base lease and a sublease between the PBC and the UG. The copies that are in your packet were draft documents. So we do intend to update the resolution and the lease documents to reflect the terms of the bid that was accepted.
All right, any questions about this?
Move for approval.
Second.
Properly before us, roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Brings us to item number 4, the acquisition of real estate.
This is a resolution for acquisition of property at 800 and 810 Ann Avenue for the UG Medical Clinic. There was a previous resolution approved in September that only listed the address, the 800 Ann Avenue address, but the property that we're purchasing actually includes 810 Avenue and Avenue. So this resolution adds 810 and Avenue to the property, which is an adjacent parking lot.
All right. The parking lot was left out. We're going to need it. That's all it is.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right. Item number 5 is the appointment of an interim county appraiser. I'll turn this over to Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor. With the announced retirement of Gene Bryan, our county appraiser, which will be effective on December 16th, it puts us in a position where we need to have a county appraiser on staff. At this point, I am moving forward with our deputy county appraiser, Kathy Briney, who I am recommending for ratification tonight, that we put a resolution appointing her, I guess it's not ratification, but a resolution appointing her for the appraiser role for a 6-month time period.
Move for
I would like to-
approval. Second.
Could we meet her, maybe?
All right. Would you like to, Mr. Bach, would you like to introduce her? Ms. Briney?
Yes, if I could ever come forward, I'd just, Kathy, if you'd come to the microphone and maybe say a couple of words about yourself, but she's been in Kansas for over 20 years, so I will let you just give a brief introduction, and then I'll let you proceed with your vote.
I did get the opportunity to meet a few of you this afternoon, and but I would like to go ahead and introduce myself just a little. I'll keep it brief, but as Doug mentioned, my name is Kathy Briney. I am working towards my 23rd year in public service, having served in the capacity of either the county appraiser or the deputy appraiser in several other Kansas counties around over this time period. So in mid-April, I did relocate to Wyandotte County and start with the UG as the deputy county appraiser. This move also gave me the opportunity to be closer to both my children, which is very important to me. So my goal is for this transition is to be as seamless and as smooth as possible. I will continue to evaluate processes currently in place and plan to work closely with one of my most valuable assets, and that's my staff. We do have a really great staff in place, and to successfully execute the duties of the appraiser's office and in a manner that is in compliance with both the Kansas Department of Revenue, Property Valuation Division, and Kansas state laws. I take this role very seriously and have every intention of performing my duties in a manner that positively reflects the expectations of the citizens of Wyandotte County as well as the unified government. So again, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
You betcha.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Brings us to item number 6, a memorandum of understanding with Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 4.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right. Seeing no discussion, roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to item number 7, an MOU with Plumbers Local Union number 8.
Move for approval.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Before we adjourn, I do want to ask Mr. Bach to make 2 announcements, one about the union contracts we just voted on, and another about another personnel issue.
Thank you, Mayor. Just noting that on the union contracts with the approval of the police contract and that of the plumbers union, that brings 40%, or a little over 600 of our employees that are in the labor union, so 40% of the labor union employees under contract now, which we've been working on over the last couple of months to start bringing into compliance. On a set, or into agreement, I should say, rather than compliance. Second thing I'd like to announce, since this is the first meeting since I've made this movement, I just want to formally introduce our new chief counsel, Ken Moore, who I appointed the first of last week to his position. So he's been with our organization a long time, but he is now stepping up to a new role, and I'm very confident in his leadership and his ability. He has some great ideas and for the future of the legal department and initiatives that he's going to put into place. So welcome him and want to make a formal announcement of him tonight.
Thank you.
He's got a couple of hard acts to follow.
Yes, he does. All right, congratulations. And for everyone, this is our last meeting till the end of the year, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We are adjourned. No, I'm sorry, next week. We have to come back on the 17th.
I was going to say.
Oh, I'm so eager. I just wanted to.